Welcome to the GAN's CORTROL video training series. Today, we will be introducing you to the CORTROL Sequence Explorer. From the desktop, double-click on the GAN's CORTROL server icon. Confirm the CORTROL server icon is visible in the bottom right of the taskbar. Once the application is running, double-click on the GAN's CORTROL client icon to start the client. Once the client is running, you will need to log in. The default user ID is lowercase admin. Enter your user ID if different from the default. Enter your password, which was created during the initial installation and setup of CORTROL. Select Connect and log into the client. The client initially is in a quarter screen format. To put the client into full screen, click on the square icon in the top right corner. By default, the client opens in live mode. Click on Sequence Explorer, found toward the top left corner of the client. The Sequence Explorer is an archive playback extension with additional tools for footage analysis and export functions. When a camera is dragged onto the sequence channels, the recorded stream is split across the available channels. The time split between each channel will depend on the number of channels as well as a predefined start and end time. Let's review the elements of the Sequence Explorer's interface. Starting on the left is the Layout panel. The Layouts panel, though selectable, has no effect on the sequence layout. Below the Layouts panel is the Channels panel, where a video source can be selected. Note though, only one channel or device can be sequenced at a time. If a second channel is dragged onto the sequence window, any previous channel will be discarded. Along the top panel are the forward and backward arrows for navigating the viewing sequence history. The Sequence Explorer window displays video when a channel source is dragged onto it. On the right is the Calendar panel, where the from date time and till date time of a required sequence is set. Below the calendar is the Snapshots selection, offering several layout options for the sequence exploration. A snapshot's layout selection should be determined by the required division of time in an exploration. An example would be a 6-hour time span spread over a 3x4 layout or 12 viewports. At 12 divisions, the time increment per viewport would be 30 minutes. By comparison, the same 6 hours spread over a 5x5 layout or 25 viewports would be 15 minutes per viewport. Now that we are familiar with the functions of the Sequence Explorer, let's bring it together and create a sequence. To start, let's go to the calendar and enter a date and time span. Click on the From date to manually enter a date, or click on the calendar icon to select a required date. With the date set, let's click on the From time and set that as well by manually entering the time. In this case, I'm changing the start time from 2 p.m. to 10 a.m. and keeping the current date. To do that, I'll highlight the hour, then tap my down arrow on my keyboard till I've reached 10. Now, let's set our till date. Click on the till date to manually enter a date, or click the calendar icon to select a required date. With the date set, let's click on the till time and set that as well by manually entering the time. In this case, I'm okay with the existing date and time, so I'll leave it as is. Select the Snapshots layout option as required. The Snapshots options are 3x4, 3x5, 4x3, 4x6, 6x4, and 5x5. In my case, I'll stick with the default 3x4 division, giving me 30-minute increments per viewport. Now that we have our from and till date and time set, let's select a source channel to sequence. I'm going to select my ZN-DNT352XE-MIR camera and drag it to the first available video channel. Note that once I've dragged my source over, the device title is listed up top. Now, let's click on the Make Sequence button to create a sequence exploration. Depending on the amount of time being sequenced, a double spinning arrow may appear. In a moment, we should have our video source sequenced or divided across the viewports. So what happens if I select a single viewport? First, note the broken yellow highlight around the selected viewport, indicating that it has been selected. Next, the function icons in the lower right starting with the sequence magnifier. Think of the magnifier function as zooming in on a selection of time. Selecting the magnifier will sequence the viewport and its measure of time across the layout. Each viewport is now roughly 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So how do we unexpand this selection of time or go back to what we had? Simply go to the History back arrow and select it. Let's reselect the first viewport again and continue. The next function icon is the play button. Selecting the play button will bring us into playback so that we can review the selection of time. For playback navigation, please refer to the CORTROL playback video. To get back to the Sequence Explorer, select Sequence Explorer. Note this time our selected viewport is still selected. Now, let's click on the camera icon, which will export the selected viewport as a video clip. To find and play back the clip, click on the Library function. For library navigation, please refer to the CORTROL playback video. What if you need to explore a sequence of time that crosses 2 or more viewports? Select the first viewport, and then select your last viewport to complete the sequence. As soon as the last viewport is selected, a solid yellow highlight will encase all the viewports. Once the viewports are selected, the same function icons will appear in the bottom right corner. Those functions, as noted earlier, are the sequence magnifier, playback, and export function. At the bottom of the screen is the start date and time and the end date and time. Next to the start and end date and time are the back and forward navigation arrows. Selecting the navigation arrows will shift the entire sequence backward or forward by the preset division of time. In this case, when I click the back arrows, I move back 6 hours, since my sequence is 6 hours. When I select the forward arrows, I move forward 6 hours. The play button, when selected, will play back the entire sequence. For playback navigation, please refer to the CORTROL playback video. To get back to the Sequence Explorer, select Sequence Explorer. The Video Export button will launch the export function. The export function allows for the selection of a specifiable sequence of time. For the video stream, only the currently selected camera will be available. The start date can be entered manually or selected from the calendar function. Selecting today will set the date to today, and the backward and forward arrows will navigate backwards or forwards by 24 hours accordingly. Select the start time and either manually enter it or use the up-down arrow on the keyboard. For the stop date and stop time, follow the same instructions as the start date and start time. Once the start and stop date and time have been entered, select the export function in order to export the video clip. Once the export is complete, you can refer to the library function in order to review the exported clip. Well, that completes our training video for CORTROL Sequence Explorer. Thank you for viewing this video, and keep an eye on our website for more to come.